Hey folks, it's Dennis from the Australian Rock Show, and on this video review we're going to take a look at the new album from Ty Coates' Bombers, which is titled Man Down. Now, for the uninitiated, or for any millennials who may be watching in, Ty Coates was frontman and vocalist for the Bombers, a powerful bluesy hard rock unit who hailed from Sydney back in the late 80s, early 90s, and a band who were very much a supergroup. The nucleus of the band began with Alan Lancaster from Status Quo and John Brewster from the Angels, forming the unit after their successful stint as members of the Party Boys. Alan in turn brought in his longtime Status Quo bandmate John Coughlin, who filled the drum stool. Now, I have written a lot about the Bombers over the years and was very fortunate enough to see the band several times very early on in their career, late 1988 to be precise. History will show that although the chemistry and songwriting prowess within the Bombers back then was second to none, not to mention being one of the hottest live acts on the circuit at the time, they did not go on and reach the heights which I and many others thought was headed their way. They did, however, leave behind a bunch of great singles and, of course, the amazing Aim High record, which is a big rock album, and which I encourage you to search out if you haven't heard it, as it's littered with catchy rock and roll tunage. Got the Australian pressing there and the European one there as well. It's fantastic. Fast forward 3 decades later and we have renewed interest in the Bombers, which is indeed a wonderful thing. Last year there was the posthumous live album recorded in 1989, which saw the light of day via UK label Barrel and Squidger, and more recently Ty Coates has assembled a group of highly talented musicians and has resurrected the Bombers name. Incidentally, we chatted with Ty a couple of days back and we'll hear that interview towards the end of this review. He shines light on this current incarnation of the band and gives us some insight into the songs as well. Now, when he announced his band reformation on social media a few months back, there was naturally a lot of interest in this project. And let me give it to you straight, this new lineup delivers the goods, they really do. This 4-piece have spent the early part of this year writing and recording, and the results of which is this solid 10-track outing titled Man Down. Ty Coates is on vocals and guitar, the super talented Christina Crofts is on searing slide guitar, and there is a formidable rhythm unit here that is comprised of bassist Mick Carter and drummer Ryan Matheson. Before I go on, I do just wish to highlight something which is worth pointing out, and it's something I think is significant when talking about the Bombers circa 1988-1989. Early on in the band's career, one of the biggest draw cards was obviously the personnel, being Status Quo's rhythm section, along with John Brewster from the Angels. Indeed, many punters went along to check this band out, as there was obviously some rock and roll heavyweights in the ranks. Yet it's fair to say that many would have walked away from early gigs being equally impressed with the powerhouse vocals of Coates, along with the slide guitar of Steve Crofts. This was indeed a band where each member brought something unique to the table and contributed to the overall sound. This was an outfit not trading on past glories, and armed with a live set of catchy original tunes, were a rock band intent on carving out a name for themselves, something which they achieved over a short space of time. Tyrone's voice was one of the key ingredients in the overall sound and structure of the Bombers, and again, if you ever saw the Bombers early on, you couldn't help but be drawn to Ty, whose stage presence and powerful vocal range were a deadly combination. On guitar in this current lineup is Christina Crofts, one of this country's premier blues players who should rightfully be a household name. She's got a distinct slide sound all her own and has recorded some world-class material over several years, and is, in my opinion, the ideal choice to play in this lineup and perform some of her departed husband's guitar parts. Interesting side note is that Christina started taking guitar lessons from Steve in the 1980s, and they would go on to cut a great album under the name Croftstown, which is titled Boogie. Go search it out. Christina's 2008 debut, called Midnight Train, is also packed with great tunes, as is her most recent album, Just How Love Feels, which was released about a year back now. Anyway, I am getting way off track and I need to get back on track and talk about this new album. Man Down is 10 tracks, 8 original compositions and 2 interpretations of Bomber songs from back in the day, which is a really nice way to acknowledge the past. As tempting as it was for me to play those familiar tunes first, I instead cranked this disc from the very start, and over the past few days have become quite familiar with this release. It's no secret that bands often kick off a record with one of their strongest songs. It's an obvious way to quickly capture the listener's ear, and the opening song here, The Phoenix, does just that. It's got a big catchy chorus, and for me is one of the album's highlights. Some strong lyrical content in here as well, with lines like, just like the phoenix, spirit underground, rising from the ashes, can never keep it down, and just the four of us, bringing this back to life. A reference there to the rock and roll resurrection of this mighty outfit. I dig that, it's a nice tie-in. The backbone of this song is the solid bass runs, which are quite striking. Also listen out for the searing slide guitar solo a little after the 2-minute mark, as it's damn impressive. The Phoenix is co-written by all 4 band members, and I'm naming it as my choice cut on the album. Another favourite is the riff-heavy Burn Down the Neighbourhood. It's got some gutsy guitars and would sound great when played loud in the live environment. Hopefully, in the not too distant future, this band can get some live gigs happening. Many of us are starved of live music at the moment, and this is one band who you will want to check out when venues are opening up again. If you're a fan of foot-stomping blues rock, the track Slave to the Booty is going to be right up your alley. It's got a catchy bass line and another sizzling slide guitar solo courtesy of Christina Crofts, who brings a touch of Louisiana to this song and helps to create another album highlight. I've been turning this one up in the car and I dig this a lot. Another well-written song is the classy From a Distance. Musically, it's extremely solid and has some powerful lyrics about the regrets which sometimes come with fatherhood. That song is incidentally written by Ty, whose songwriting output on this record is very strong, having penned 6 of the tracks here along with some co-writes. I like the flavour and the themes which he puts in his craft, and 1 or 2 of the tracks on Man Down have a similar feel to the material on his Driver's Lament EP from last year. More please. Of particular interest to older fans is the inclusion of 2 Bombers tracks, which are No Danger and Get Up and Get It On. Both tracks originally appeared on the Aim High album, and both sound very, very fresh on Man Down. To learn more about these songs and the resurrection of the Bombers, why don't we hear from Ty Coates, who I had a brief chat with recently. Mate, congratulations on the new album. I've given it several plays over the past few days and I'm really enjoying it. An obvious first question is, what's been the catalyst for resurrecting the Bombers name?
Well, look, first of all, thanks for your support, mate. I appreciate it. Look, you know, I was talking to, you may or may not be aware, I did some videos, which were just videos of the old back catalogue of the songs from the Aim High album and a couple of others, a couple of B-sides. And we got the band together and we had Christina that was kind of, you know, in the wings, and I thought it'd be just awesome to do some stuff with her, not only for her, and I wouldn't want her to be in the shadow of Steve, but it would be a nice, you know, nod to Steve and a bit of a, you know, I guess a memorial kind of thing to him. So, and I've been working with a young drummer called Ryan Matheson and bass player Mick Carter, who does a lot of work with Swanee as well, and the rhythm section is just to die for. They're just fantastic. So, you know, I thought, well, there's nothing happening in COVID, so why don't we just put some stuff out? There's been people asking for a while, so I figured, okay, we'll do some videos, and they were kind of lockdown videos from a distance. And then it just morphed into, hey, let's do some new songs. So I got the writing bug again and wrote a bunch of stuff, and we did a couple of songs, a couple of co-writes for the guys. And we ended up with enough songs for an album, and I just said, well, hey, let's put an album out. And they said, great. And I was speaking to Al Lancaster, and he said, well, why don't you just do a version of the Bombers and just call it Ty Coates Bombers? And that kind of, you know, put the idea. And another guy mentioned that same thing to me, Mick O'Shea, who you'd be aware of, is, you know, one of Australia's best drummers and a good friend of mine. And he said, well, why don't you do the Bombers thing again? So, you know, I thought, okay, well, that must be a sign. So I went ahead and did it.
And of course, this new lineup has received a thumbs up from both Alan Lancaster and John Brewster. There was, of course, the posthumous live album, which was released last year on the UK label Barrel and Squidger. As a long-time fan of this band and its music, it is pleasing that there's been, you know, some renewed interest in the Bombers.
Look, it's great. And, you know, a lot of the people that used to follow the Bombers around before, even not only the local fans, but people from a distance have, you know, always sort of touched base. And whenever there's been a post that's gone up of one of the old clips, you know, there's been great comments on there. So there's quite a few people out there who are still very supportive of it. And I spoke to John and Al about it, and I would never do anything because I have immense respect for those guys, and I would never do anything if they, didn't give it their blessing, which they did. And I did an interview with them respectively, and they were all keen for it. So, yeah, I haven't heard from them yet. I don't know if they've actually got a copy of it yet, but I need to get a copy to them and see what they think.
Okay, now there is a song on this new album titled The Phoenix, which opens the album up, and it is in fact my choice cut. A little nod there to reviving the band maybe. I did note lyrics such as Rising from the Ashes, Can Never Keep It Down, Just the Four of Us, bringing this back to life. It's good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, well, that is exactly right. That was, and I figured, let's do a co-write where all four of us have an input in it so that the guys have got, obviously a credit on there, but also it's just, I think, good business management just to have those guys, invested in a little bit more rather than just being players. They've actually got some, songwriting credit on there too, and it's a good glue to hold the band together, I think. And, the guys were really excited about it, and they all wrote their parts, and we got it together, and, it came up quite good. So it is definitely a nod to the old days, yeah, and just, bringing it back to life again.
Okay, let's talk a little about this band you put together, all great players, and in fact, Ryan Matheson and Mick Carter both appeared on your Driver's Lament EP a while back, didn't they?
Yes, they did, yeah.
Okay, so they've been, I assume they've been in other bands up there on the Central Coast?
Yeah, look, he does some stuff, around the place. He's got a really good little music academy, drum academy that he runs up here, which is very successful. And he's a younger guy and just a brilliant drummer. He's just got and I think he went to the conservatorium too. So, he's got the reading thing down, and he's very fluent with, phrasing and stuff. And Mick's been around for quite a while, and the most notable, I think he's been Swanee's bass player for the last 20 years or something.
Right.
So, he's done a lot of work there. But both of those guys together just really gelled as a rhythm section. They're very, very tight. We've been using the guys out doing our covers thing with the Creedence show and doing a few other bits and bobs around the place that we do, up around the Central Coast and the Hunter region. And those guys, we've been working together for probably the last 2 years or so. And, it's just a great thing.
And on guitar, you've got Christina Crofts, who I think is one of this country's premier blues players and who should rightfully be a household name. She's got a distinct slide sound all her own and brings a lot to the table, doesn't she?
Look, absolutely. She gets awesome tone from like a JCM 800 amp through one speaker. And to look at her rig on stage, you think, oh, okay, whatever. And then she fires it up and it's like, oh my God, it's just driving sound. I love her playing, and I do some gigs with her too on bass just when she does her thing. And, she humbles me by saying, would you come and play some bass? And I'm not really a bass player, but, I do my best, and it's a lot of fun. But she was the obvious choice, Dennis. She's just such a lovely girl, and she's a great player. And, she was, her and Steve, it was just a tragic thing that she lost Steve so early in life. And for her to be doing a memorial and guest spotting for him on the new Bombers album, I think it just had to be that way.
Yeah, I agree. Mate, one tune on here is called From a Distance, which I found really appealing. Some powerful lyrics in there, which I interpreted as dealing with the regrets which sometimes come with fatherhood. Can you elaborate on that one?
Yeah, look, it is. It's definitely a nod to the single dads out there who, for whatever reason, they're probably alienated from their children, and, Christmases and birthdays, and even just having, the weekly or fortnightly access, whatever they have, it's often a struggle for them. And, the suicide rate's quite high against dads that, who don't get a fair shake. And, whether they did the wrong thing or not, at the end of the day, it's not about the people, it's about the actual kids from that relationship. And I guess that song's about that, and, trying to get those, the custodial parent to try and realise that the other one really should be a part of the kid's life as well.
Couple of interpretations of old Bombers tunes on the album, No Danger and Get Up and Get It On. Both tunes have a fresh spin on them, yet remain, I think, quite loyal to the originals.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And look, No Danger's been such a, I don't know, I've always loved that song, and that was one of the first songs I wrote with Dario and Angelo, Dario Bortolo and Ange Saltutis when I first came to New South Wales a long time ago. And Mick Carter got hold of it on bass, and he played fretless bass on it. And when he played that, I just went, oh my God, we've got to record that again. Because he just plays fretless really, really well, and it was just right for the song, and it's just great. So, instead of the saxophone, I played lead on it and just, did the guitar interpretation, which is pretty much the same lines as a sax, and it kind of worked. So, yeah, I think it came up quite well. We're very proud of it, and the guys were excited about it as well.
Do you ever look back and reflect on those 3 or so years with the Bombers? You know, the band really achieved quite a lot in a relatively small amount of time, didn't they?
Look, yeah, I reflect on it all the time, and it's just a shame that we didn't, have bigger success, because we definitely had, the players in the band were just second to none, but at the same time, I'm forever grateful for having that opportunity, because I learnt so much, and working with John and Alan and the other guys as well, it was just such a big learning curve, and I got to do some stuff that I never thought I'd ever would as a young kid growing up on a farm in Western Australia. So, it went much further than I ever expected, and we got to do Countdown, and we got to do big tours and played in the big stadium. So, hey, no complaints. It was awesome while it lasted.
Just going on from that, mate, from the production side of things, and I know that this is a field you have moved into in recent years via your Living the Dream studio setup. What things do you think you took away from working with Alan and John, who of course produced the Aim High record? One of many things the two of them worked on.
Look, I think one of the things that I learnt from Alan, funnily enough, is guitar sounds. I mean, Alan was a real stickler for that, and he just taught me about tones and about how to get the best out of an amp or a guitar, and John as well. But I think just the listening skills and making sure that you don't rush it, and just sit back and listen to it, and give the songs time to breathe. Like don't listen to them for 2 days, and make sure you're resting your ears enough, because when your ears fry out after an amount of time in the studio, as you probably know. So, you don't know what sounds good or what sounds bad at the end of the day. But I think just those sorts of things, and just listening skills, and working a song to the point where it's not overworked, because if you overproduce it and you keep on second guessing yourself, you can ruin the initial essence of the song. So that's a real fine line. I think that's probably one of the few of the main things I learned from those guys.
Okay, so if and when it is safe for bands to start doing live work again, I'm guessing Ty Coates Bombers will have some gigs lined up. What else is in the pipeline for the band at this stage?
Look, at this stage, it's a bit of an unknown. We've got a couple of venues that are interested in having us play as soon as their restrictions are lifted, and they can have a reasonable amount of people in there that they can afford to, pay bar staff and security and all that sort of stuff. So from their end of the scale, they've got to run a business too. So we'll definitely do gigs. At this stage, I don't know when and where it's going to be, mate, but we're definitely all keen on getting out and doing it. In fact, we have a rehearsal coming up soon where we're going to run, just some of the songs. We've already had a couple of rehearsals, which has been fantastic, and I wanted to get in there and just work a couple of songs and see how the band gelled, and, it was a no-brainer. It was great. So I can't wait to get out and do some live work. I'm thinking probably next year now, though.
That's wonderful, mate. Congratulations again on the album and on breathing new life into the band. There hasn't been much to get excited about musically in 2020, but this album, Man Down, is a much-needed shot in the arm for many music fans. So, again, well done.
Mate, I really appreciate your support, as usual. I mean, you're just one of the stalwarts of the music industry, and me and all of the other guys out there in bands that are sort of doing it hard, we appreciate what you do.
Some nice words there from Ty, which we appreciate, but if any compliments are to be given, they should be directed in Ty's direction for having the drive to resurrect the Bombers. And it was interesting to hear some of his thoughts and insights about the resurrection of the band, and to also get his take on some of the material contained on the album. This band sound cohesive and very tight, which is one reason why these songs sound as strong as they do. Another reason this album works so well is that you have two seasoned musicians in Coates and Crofts on board. Like many others, they've both paid plenty of rock and roll dues and are two musicians whose careers I have long followed. They continue to produce well-written original music which is deserving of more attention. As I mentioned to Ty during the interview, there hasn't been much to get excited about in 2020, but Man Down from Ty Coates Bombers is a much needed shot in the arm and an album which you need to search out. In my opinion, when that classic lineup of the Bombers finished up in the early 1990s, they left behind a very special rock and roll legacy. With Ty Coates and that big voice of his back leading the charge, that legacy continues, and I for one am grateful. Man Down gets the big 2 thumbs up from me, and I reckon if you're a fan of hard driving, blues-based rock, you're going to dig it as well. If you wish to learn more about Christina Crofts, we had her on the show way back on episode 18. I encourage you to go check that one out. And we also had a solid look over Tyrone's career back on show number 5 of the podcast. We also chatted with drummer Mick O'Shea, who Ty mentioned in our interview, and we've had detailed interviews with the great John Brewster and Alan Lancaster as well. In fact, the interview with Alan from about a year ago, where we specifically focused on his time in the Party Boys and then the Bombers, has been one of our most downloaded. You will find all of these interviews at australianrockshow.com. To purchase this new album from Ty Coates Bombers titled Man Down, head to liveinthedreammusic.com/shop. They've got some cool merch for sale on there as well. And if you wish to keep up to date with all of their news and updates, you will find them on Facebook at facebook.com/thebombersband. Thanks once again for watching, folks. We are proud supporters of Australian rock and roll, especially stuff which is harder edged. We've been flying the flag since 1987, so if you think your band could fly onto our rock and roll radar and you'd like us to review your band's release, australianrockshow@gmail.com. That is our email address, and that's the best place to contact us. Be sure to visit our online home at australianrockshow.com. Current and previous episodes of the podcast can be found there and are available for streaming or download. If you're a long-time listener of ours or you appreciate what we do, please take time to subscribe to our YouTube channel at the end of this video, which is a great way to help us out and to keep up to date on all that's happening in our rock and roll world. T-shirts. We've still got a bunch of them for sale. They're $20 plus postage. You will find all of the ordering details. There they are there. You'll find all of the ordering details up on our website. And if you do purchase one and wish to be included on our Wall of Fame with other like-minded rock and roll disciples, that can be most definitely arranged. Thanks again for watching, folks. And until next time, this is Dennis, out.